you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Even the most heinous of doors are still open.
They're cracked, kind of. I keep one little pinky toe in every door.
Hi, this is Once to Watch Chef's Choice. I'm Abby Kenna, and wait, oh my god, I didn't know which one of you to talk about first.
I'm guest Giselle Libby because I'm just a huge fan of Kacy, and I wanted to jump on and just fangirl as I do.
Yeah, and we're joined by Kacy Hill.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. How are you on this honestly beautiful morning?
Stunning Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good, not much to complain about. I thought I was depressed, but it was just the rain.
Yeah. Dude, yeah.
Literally the sun came out and I was like, oh, I'm not depressed. It was just raining.
Daylight savings?
Weeks. You know what's crazy? Okay, it was like the daylight savings, kicked in. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I haven't been sleeping super well. And I was like, I'm going to sleep in. And I slept in till like 8:30 and I was like, good work, Kacy. And then I realized it was like daylight savings had kicked in and it was really 7:30 and I was like, are you kidding me?
Do you naturally wake up super early?
No.
Oh,
I mean, so I think, I just go through these phases of like not being able to sleep super well where I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'll just like get up.
Yeah.
I think it's called a third bird.
So what is this?
It's not an early bird and it's not a night owl. There's a third bird.
I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah. Which is, I forget the exact like hours that that qualify you as a third bird, but I am a third bird. I'm someone who naturally wakes up around like, if no alarm is present, around 8 a.m. Mm-hmm. But I tend to push it a little earlier to get up, around 7:30 or so. Not this week, but I am a third bird, if anyone was wondering.
I've never heard of this.
Me neither.
But I think that's me. Because I like force myself to wake up super early.
Yeah.
But I would prefer to wake up at like a solid 7:30.
Yeah, 7:30 is really nice.
Yeah.
7:30 might qualify you as an early bird. I'm not sure. You might be on the cusp. You might be an
this is
early
like a
bird
new
sun, third bird
astrology.
rising. No, but I definitely am I'm what they call a third bird.
Oh, I'm glad this is your era then. Daylight savings is for you.
It kind of is. Yeah. So but yes, I'm doing well. In short, I'm doing well.
Incredible. And you're LA based, right?
I am, yes.
Okay. Yeah. How long have you been here? How do you like it?
Like 11 plus years.
Whoa.
It's been a while. I know. It's like basically my whole adult life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And do you love it? Do you hate it?
It depends on the day.
The hour even, yeah.
I'm such a like, what's the right word? I'm such a, I don't know, fantasizer. I love to like spin scenarios of like, I'm just going to move somewhere else and I'm going to work on a farm, or I'm from Arizona. So some days I'm like, I'm just going to go back to Arizona. Like, I'll be so much happier there. But it's like, doing what? Doing what, girl? Like,
couldn't tell you.
I think I just am someone who needs to switch things up every now and then, know. But at the end of the day, I love a routine, and that's what makes me happy. So I have a lot of amazing friends in LA, and like there's certain things in LA that I love, and certain things that I don't. And the things that I don't, I pretty much just like stay away from.
Yeah. Like they're just avoidable.
They're so easy to avoid. Like the sort of like stereotypical like poopy LA people. I'm like, I just am not friends with them.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be.
I think more people need to learn that.
When people say they hate LA, I'm like, LA is like 25 different cities in one. So maybe you hate one of them. Yeah. But there's probably one that you'll like,
Have you ever heard of the like workaway programs, like the WOOF?
The WOOF?
It's called WOOF. It's WWOOF, I think, if I'm correct.
I have no idea what that is.
It's you can like go to a farm for 2 weeks.
Oh, I have heard of this.
Yeah.
You've researched it, I'm sure.
Yes.
I keep threatening that I'm going to do that every time something goes bad in my life.
I threaten myself with that every day.
Right. Holding yourself accountable.
Just this morning, I watched a TikTok of someone that was like, here's my Lululemon haul from the mall. And I saw they're in Arizona, and I was like, that could be me.
It could have been you, yeah.
It could have, and it still can.
It's still in the cards.
It's still low-key in the cards. So I'm like, here's what I don't close any doors.
Right.
I'm leaving every door open for any, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Even the most heinous of doors are still open.
They're cracked, kind of. I keep one little pinky toe in every door.
I love how it's like Lululemon influencer or farmer.
Yeah.
To me, it's a fine line. You can be both.
That's tea.
The two wolves inside.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, there are two wolves inside of me. And one of them is a Lululemon influencer, and the other works on a vineyard in Napa.
Oh
my God.
That just sounds so great.
Mentally, I'm there.
Literally, yeah.
And physically, I will be.
Oh.
Physically, I will be there eventually.
One day. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks so much for being here. This is actually, this is our travel podcast, our life coach podcast.
Stunning.
This is Chef's Choice, and we're going to go through a little 3-course meal of your tunes.
Yay. I can't wait.
You sound so enthused.
I think I just have a monotone voice. It's something I've worked with my whole life.
Well, I want to know, if listeners had never heard your music before, what's the first song you would tell them to start with?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like, so I'm about to put out my 4th album.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's been so much sort of like growth as an artist, and I've really figured out who I am as an artist. So it's hard to be like, here's what you start with for Kacy Hill. I would be inclined to say, listen to something off my new album. I think maybe my song No One.
Make your coffee, 1 cup will do. The morning's quiet, sky looks so blue. Oh, oh. And part of me still thinks I'll disappear, and now and then part of me,
which was the first single off of this album, is probably a good starting place because I feel like that song sort of encapsulates some of the new direction, which like this album is a lot more guitar heavy. There's a lot more sort of like Americana and like country influence in it, but it's still very much like Kacy Hill and being like slightly experimental, and there's still some of the like kooky stuff.
Right.
And I think No One is sort of like a good representation of this album, but also sort of like stringing across the last few records too.
Yeah, it's like a gateway between past and present, sort of.
It's the gateway drug into Kacy Hill.
Of course.
Yeah, it's what they warned you about.
Well, tell me about that song. How did it come about? How long ago did you write it?
I wrote it probably, what day is it? It's March now. Let's see. Wrote it probably like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
I wrote a lot of this album about a year and a half ago, like November, October, probably like September through November 2022. And that one started as a little loop. My friend Aaron Wing, who is a great guitar player, and we were introduced through my friend Aiden, who I wrote a lot of the album with too. He is so great and kooky, and will just send these like fantastic little guitar loops.
Yeah.
Just these sort of like little modular loops, and they're, I don't know, they're just so fantastic and weird. So at the very beginning of the song of No One, you hear this like and that's just the little guitar loop. So he sent me that just as a small loop, and I wrote the whole song just over that loop.
Oh, cool.
Just in my little studio at home. And then I put some like shitty, like splice, no offense, but just like, splice loop drums over it. And I was like, okay, it's like this, it's got this sort of like, like real drum vibe, and sort of just sort of like floats along. So that's how I started it. And then we finished it, with my friend Aiden, me, Aiden, and Aaron. And I don't know, that one just felt so, I don't know, sometimes little melodies and stuff sort of just flow out and they're right. And so that's how that one came about.
Yeah. Did you always mean for that to be the first single?
No, but sometimes you kind of just get the feeling where you're like, okay, this is the first one. Like, that just felt sort of like the foundation of the album. Like I said, it was sort of like the through line between like other records into this, where I'm like, okay, this this feels like the, you know, the bridge to get over here.
And I mean, on that note, did you mean to write a record, or did these songs just kind of feel like sonically they were in the same world? Because you've written a lot of albums now.
Yeah, this is number 4. Honestly, okay, so I started being like, I'm not writing a record. And then it turned into a record. It always does. But like, I think the thing that I've realized is I know some artists, not many, but some who are just like prolific, constant songwriters and will constantly make stuff. I feel like my friend Bartiz, who I finished a lot of the record with, he is like that, where he's just like always writing stuff. And I'm like, that is sick for you. I can't do that. Because I talked to other artist friends who are like, absolutely not. I go through periods where I feel like I'll never write a song again, or where I just need like a detox from writing. And I think that's kind of how I am. Like, I'm very much a project person.
Right.
So after the last record, my third record, I felt really burnt out. I think because I did 2 records in 2 years. So my second album came out 2020, and then the next one came out 2021. And I went on a tour, and I think it was just like pandemic vibes too, where I was just like, what am I doing this for?
Yeah, it almost feels like escapism to be that productive at some point.
Yeah, but it was also just like the returns on the amount of work you were putting in were like so just depressing, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because it was, you know, COVID era too, where there's like, everyone was kind of putting out records at the same time, and they were sort of falling upon deaf ears because you couldn't do much touring. And it was just sort of like, I mean, and there were, you know, other things going on.
So much going on.
So it was like, I think I felt really burnt out by that. Not I think, I did. And so then I was like, I don't think I want to make a record for a sec. Like, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe I'm going to learn to code, and maybe I'm just going to become a software engineer instead of doing music. I'm not kidding. And my friend now teases me, like, if I'm having a bad day, he's like, are you going to learn? He's like, are you learning to code? I'm like, yeah, actually. I did. I mean, I didn't. I did like a little bit, but that's sort of that. Again, we're leaning into my escapism. And so, yeah, I was like, I actually don't know if I want to do music because I feel so burnt out by this. And like, what am I getting from it? And I've been doing it for a while. But then, of course, I end up doing it. And I started writing again, and like, I think found something that I hadn't felt in a long time, you know, for it in writing this record.
Yeah.
Which was just like the joy of it, you know?
Why do you think that is? Like, where did the joy come from?
I think a lot of it was like I had a garden and
love.
Yeah, love. And it was very transformative, truly. That's what I wrote. I think a lot of the inspiration from the album came from this.
Yeah.
But I had a garden, and it was just like a big, you know, patch of dirt, but I made it into fertile land. And and you know, put seeds in the ground, and then you get stuff to grow from it. And there was just something really beautiful about sort of the, I don't know, truly like the miracle of life. You know, you realize like, oh my God, you put a seed in the ground, and out of nowhere, you know, with sun and water and good soil, it grows, and you can eat it, and it can sustain life. And that is so beautiful. And it sort of like reshaped my philosophy on like success and on making music. And I think it was like a few things. Number one, it was like I had been feeling depressed for a while, and I was like, okay, well, it is such a miracle that I am even here to be living. Like, so many things can go wrong, you know, up to this point, but I'm alive, so I might as well make the best of it. And then the other thing was sort of just like, as it pertains to music, being like, you know, there are so many things that are out of my control, you know, and I can't, success is something that like can come or not. And it really has no bearing on like what kind of person I am, or like even to a big extent, like how good the music is or whatever. So it's just like, I have to enjoy it, and whatever comes of it, be grateful, you know? Yeah. And not really expect too much. But like whatever I do get, just be like, wow, this is what a gift, you know?
Yeah, I mean, so much of what we're doing now is based off of like the likes and the numbers and the stream count. So it's hard not to be like, oh, let me put something out for people's consumption.
Yeah.
And at some point it's like, oh, there's such a fine line between, I don't know, appeasing that, but then also just doing things for the act of creating it. I don't know. That must be really hard to navigate, like the motivation there.
What's funny is that I've never felt the pressure to make something for other people.
That's so good.
I was going to say, like, that's something that I've always loved about your music, is it never has felt like that. And this record, it's so cool hearing you talk about that, because I hear every single thing you're saying, like, in the music. Especially, and I've only heard, like, 4 tracks, right?
Yeah.
So it's so cool how much that shined through, like, in, you know, literally in the lyrics, but also just in the sound of it, and the visuals also are so, like, on the nose of what you were just speaking about with, like, the garden and everything. You're just building a world with this one, and I love it so much.
Thank you. I love that you can see that. I think, but yeah, it is funny. I've never like felt that pressure. I think what it is that I was so naive when I got into music. And I was just like, I will make what I want to make, and people will come and they will love it.
You were like, obviously I'm going to be the biggest star.
Well, because it's like I grew up in Arizona and like didn't have any reference of music or entertainment, the industry. And I sort of just like was catapulted into this like really sort of like just wolf's den, you know, of like being on a major label and like having this like huge artist co-sign and like then having this huge feature. Like all of a sudden I feel like I had so many opportunities and I didn't quite know what to do with them yet because I didn't know yet like what kind of artist I was or, you know, what I wanted to make. That took me a lot of time to figure out. But like in that, I don't know, I just have never felt the pressure to like make something that, you know, it's like, oh yeah, make this like TikTok sound or make this, you know, this type of song. Because if I don't like it, I'm not going to do it. Like that's just, I would rather do a different job. Like fully, I would rather go work on a farm, do anything else in the world than make music that I don't like. Like it's just not worth it at that point, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of awesome that you had to almost work backwards in a sense to like find yourself and land where you are now. Like I'm sure it was disorienting being so young and like being signed to a major label and all of that.
But it's also like tale as old as time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, like some of the artists we talked to on here are like 19, 20 and they had a song go viral on TikTok and now they're like 3 singles deep and trying to figure out who the fuck they are.
I mean, but that's not that different from what I did. Yeah. It's just that there was like money thrown at me and there was like, here's the thing about that. It's very similar because you're working backwards. You're sort of like, okay, now I have this huge opportunity. Like, what do I do with it? And it messes with your head when you're not able to like then capitalize on that success immediately. Yeah. Because it feels like you've done something wrong, you know, like, like, oh my God, I couldn't figure this out. Like, I'm such a failure, like, bah, bah, bah. But it's like, no, you're 19, you're 20, and this is a massive industry. And at the end of the day, like, you know, not to say this, you know, in the company of the industry, but like,
please,
but like major labels, like it's sort of just like, or labels in general, it's sort of like, we're gonna, you know, put money into a bunch of different things and hopefully one of them pops off. And at the end of the day, you're just like one of those little things and it probably won't work for you, you know, like statistically and it doesn't have any bearing on like how good you are, you know, whatever. But I think it's really just like about persistence and you have to like keep shooting your shot until it's not fun anymore, you know?
Right.
I don't know. That's how I feel about it. But I think that it's like, I think it's so easy to get caught in the trap of like, oh, I'm such a failure and I couldn't like make this work, whatever. It's like, now again, like the garden, so many things are out of your control. You can't even like see the amount of things that are not in your control that like you just, people in rooms that like, they don't care about you really. Yeah. Quite frankly. Yeah. They don't. And they might care about you for a little and then they'll go to a different company and they'll care about someone else for the next 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not your fault.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good for young artists to hear.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
100%.
Well, I love how like organic and authentic the album sounds.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm curious if you had a song to sort of represent this era of your life off of the album. Which one would it be?
Probably. I mean, there's a lot. I think this album is like sort of the most I've like really dug to the meat of it. Mm-hmm. And it feels very personal. I feel like I was writing so much of it about my life before I was really even able to like acknowledge what was going on in my life.
Yeah, the retrospective therapy,
like,
right?
Oh no.
Oh no, I'm coming to terms with what happened to me 10 years ago.
Well, it was sort of like a relationship. I was in a very long relationship. And so anyway, I feel like Damn, which is the 5th single off the album before the record comes out, I think that feels the most sort of like encompassing of just like that, or Listen to You, just feel like, ooh, oh boy.
If you wanted to, you would. I don't ask for much, but I should. You can have your space, it's all good. Damn, how would you wanna be the man I thought that you were gonna?
Yeah.
Oh no, you know?
Oh no.
Yes.
Yeah, I was in a very long relationship, like 6.5 years.
That's
And
intense.
yeah, and like pretty recently ended. And I think I was writing so much of this record about the way I was feeling in it and sort of the like, sort of like abandonment I felt in it. And yeah. But before I was really able to like express those things, I was, writing them in the lyrics, and then now I go back and listen, and I'm like, oh my God, oh boy, yeah.
I love that when you write something and you're like, it's about nothing. I think it's just like words that came out of me, and then you're like, oh.
But it's like I knew what it was about, but
Yeah.
it was like, I would tell my friend, I was like, oh, this is like petty me saying that. This is like petty me, this is like, I'm going to be like in my songwriter, just like petty mode. And I'm like, no, I wasn't being petty. I was being honest.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It came from somewhere.
yeah, exactly. Like the hook of Damn is, damn, I wish you'd want to be the man I thought that you were gonna.
I love that song. We heard it at your
Oh, yeah.
we saw
Yeah.
your acoustic set.
Yeah.
It was so cool. It's so cool to hear
Thank you.
acoustic and then hear like the full track too. I'm so excited to hear the full production of that one.
Yay. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm glad you guys were there.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
amazing.
beautiful. I was going to bring that up because I'm curious what your sonic influences were when you were making the album. Because we heard it with like pedal steel and acoustic.
I am such a country music fan, and I know country is like cool again. I've been a country music
Same.
fan. I've been a country music fan for so many years.
Same.
I'm like, girl, all right, everyone, hop on.
It's so fun seeing everyone hop on, but it's interesting to see like the ways that they're talking about it. Like as if one day everyone just woke up and started making good country music.
I'm like,
and
no,
it's
they've been making it.
That's not exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the country influence in your music.
Thank
It
you.
feels so, organic is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm curious to see like the artists that try to force it, like, because everyone's going to jump on that now.
Everyone's jumping, and I'm like, okay, fine. You can try. Throw some guitar on it. Like, see what happens. But at the end of the day, like, the last 3 records, most of the influences have been, like, country music or, like, Peter Gabriel.
Love.
Sheryl Crow, which is country. But, some of this record, like, a little bit of, like, the Blue Nile. But, like, who's not? But,
Cool.
yeah, it's really, honestly, like, as far as songwriting, all my references are country music or Peter Gabriel or like
I love that range.
country music or Peter Gabriel or like Sailing by Christopher Cross or like a few Sarah McLachlan songs. Like, do you know there's a song called Sweet Surrender by Sarah McLachlan? It is so good. It's off Surfacing, which is the record that like has Angel and like 80, beautiful record. And the song Sweet Surrender is like so weird because it's like got some of that 90s like synthy like future stuff, you know, like in the same vein of like what's the Madonna song, the Girls song, off, I think it's Off Music.
Oh, What It Feels Like for a Girl.
Yes,
that's one of my favorites.
So good. So good. And so it's like,
I hear that actually, that influence in your music
there's
too.
like, there's like some of that, like, Sweet Surrender by Sam McLachlan, always country music. I just feel like if you want to be a good songwriter, you need to listen to country music, you know?
I'm going to clip that and use that statement. Honestly, so true.
I kind of was that pretentious kid that was like, I don't like country music. And then I remember that my mom raised me on both pop punk and Keith Urban. I was like, I've been a liar my whole life.
Urban.
Yeah, I just repressed the Keith Urban in me.
That's so funny. Yeah. I love that. I was like, it's funny. My mom really didn't like country music, but I think it's because she grew up like her household like listening to country music. I'm like, you were a horse girl. I have like pictures of my mom like writing Western, and I'm like, oh, but you didn't like country music. Like she grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and like, but yeah, I also grew up in the era of like Dixie Chicks and like Shania and Faith Hill and like Leanne Rimes and like Garth Brooks, like all that stuff, like that 90s country, like so 2000s. Good. So good.
Yeah, you could never escape this.
Unbeatable, literally unbeatable. And so I think that's been such a like constant, and even like stuff like Jewel and stuff. I'm like, God, that was so good too. It's like, anyway, I think it's just like goes, again, if you want to be a good songwriter, just listen to country music, and like, it's just great country songs are just like master classes in songwriting and in honesty and in like storytelling and also in specificity. Yeah. Like just being able to have really specific, references and storytelling, but do it in a way that is so universal, where it's like, oh my God, I feel that and I can see that and everything, but the sentiment in there is universal, Yeah.
100%.
Obviously, I think that's like also obviously why Taylor Swift and stuff is so big. It's like she's so good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. My mom is like the most avid listener of this podcast, and she always tells me, she's like, I don't love where Taylor Swift's gone genre-wise, but I think she's the best storyteller ever.
And
because she was raised on country music.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Am I a huge fan of the last record? No, I don't like it. But like, I stand by her as a storyteller.
100%.
Yeah. I would love for you to make a playlist of your like masterclass songwriters. I think that your fans would love that.
I literally have like a playlist that I've sent my friends, where when people started to get into country, I was like, all right, everyone, and I made a playlist called Curated Country, like for my friends, being like, all right, you want to hear some stuff?
Yep.
Here you go.
For me, it was when Golden Hour was huge by Kacy Musgraves.
Yeah.
So many of my friends were like, I know I said I wouldn't listen to country. And I'm like, here you are. Yeah. Like, welcome.
We knew you'd be here eventually.
Exactly.
Because it's undeniable.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. And there's just so much feeling in it. But it's also, I kind of love that country can be cringe and like goofy.
Yes,
like,
exactly. Like pop music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It can be cringe and goofy, and I like some of the like sort of funny like country references. There's a song called American Gothic by Stephen Wilson Jr. and Haley Witters, and it's so like it's kind of like camp, but 100%. It's so good. Or like, do you know like Paul Cawthon, like Cocaine Country Dancing is so like, I'm like, this song's camp.
I don't like know that, but I need to know it.
But
now.
It's just like goofy, wild, and like, but you just want to like kick a door down. And I'm like, oh, this is like, it's so good. And I just feel like so much of like pop music and like, whatever. And like LA stuff is like, so it's like, ooh, like, like rip off your skin and like kick a door down. And like, that's what country music does well.
People in LA need to do that.
They literally like LA is like one of the most interesting, like, places to play on tour, because people are no other city is like people watching like this, and it'll be like,
and it's the pride too, because they'll leave and be like, wow, that was a really good show, I wish I could play
really
like that.
Because I couldn't tell.
Exactly.
Because you barely looked at me. But I think LA is just like, a lot of people here are very wrapped up in like being cool, and I don't know. The older I get, not that I'm that old, I'm like about to be 30, but I mean,
That is not old.
I know, but older I get, I will say I just like am so much less into being cool. I just don't care. I don't care. It doesn't interest me. It doesn't fulfill me. Like I simply don't care.
Have you been to a country show in LA?
No. Well, I went to like Chris Stapleton in.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Where was that? Santa Barbara?
Okay. Yeah, I went to Maren Morris at the Hollywood
fun.
Bowl, and it was so cool because it felt like the LA coolness kind of was gone. Like it was
Yeah.
like the rare country music fans in LA, and everyone was like, okay, we all see each other. Like, like everyone's like, it felt like, I'm from South Carolina. It felt like I was back in the South. It was so cool.
I love that.
There's not that like sense of coolness in country music that like, you know, all the other shows here where it's like, who do you know here? Like,
Oh yeah, the like
I hate
it's like
that.
yeehaw. Like
it's
that was
like
it.
we're all yeehaw.
Yeah.
Like let's get into
Exactly.
it. I love that.
Yeah,
no,
it was great.
honestly, I need to go to more shows. I don't go to a lot of shows, and I'm sorry.
Your formal
that's
apology.
I don't know. You know what it is? I have light anxiety. I have horrible anxiety, and I don't get anxious at shows anymore. What I get anxious about is parking and leaving.
Yep.
Like, do I leave before the last song because then I beat the rush out?
Yep.
Do I like the logistics?
Yeah.
Most of the time are enough to keep me away.
Yeah.
Parking alone.
Parking, Ubering, waiting in an Uber.
You have to learn. You have to like study each venue and know, because that's like what we do for our jobs. We have like if a show's at a certain venue, I'm more likely to go.
Yeah, I need someone to like transport me there, transport me home.
That'd be awesome.
That's sort of the way I do it. Yeah, and it's not my job to go to shows. It kind of is, but like it's
also like a social choice too, because I'm like, okay, this artist knows these people. I know I'm going to talk to people, and I have to like be a person for 2 hours.
Yeah, I always enjoy it when I go.
The second I get there and I'm talking to someone I like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy I went.
I'm so happy I went. What a treat.
The
What
getting
an
out the
absolute
door.
treat. I know. It's, my God. Anyway, I should go to more shows, but
Go to a country show.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Start
there. That's where I'll start. I feel like that's my gateway drug to shows. Yeah.
Well, we've been through the gateway drug of Kacy Hill now and the entree. And I would love to know a little bonus track, a little cherry on top tune that you think deserves some more attention for dessert.
Okay. Since I already got into this album, let me say, my second album is a Selfish If We Talk About Me Again. I feel like, and I do think this is a product of the pandemic, I feel like she never got her shine. I think that record is so good, quite
So
frankly.
good.
And so for dessert, I'd say we're taking it back.
Yes.
We're revisiting. I think maybe To Someone Else is one of my favorite songs I've ever written.
I must have been listening to someone else. To someone else.
That or Much Higher.
Is it selfish if we talk about me again? There's this big dream where I'm singing to you, and then we walk home and I'm crying in Phoenix. There's this time, but I gotta get over it. I can regret the way I loved you.
Two of my favorite songs I've ever written, because they don't sound, in my opinion, they don't sound like anything else I've ever heard, and they're really special to me, and just lyrically and sonically, and have such a special place in my heart. And I think I'm still really, really proud of that record. So that's what I would have for dessert. Yeah.
Love it. You're a fan of
Delicious.
Much Higher. I heard you.
Oh yes,
I heard
yeah.
you-
That's one of my favorites.
We got a
And-
much higher head in the house.
Exactly. That's me. That was also one of my pandemic albums, like essential. So good.
Thank you.
I would love to hear about like how you decide like production on the songs because they're so unique and different. Like what kind of is your process in like experimenting?
It's changed with every record a lot. Like the first album I put out, I knew nothing. I was but a baby deer getting its legs, you know, learning to stand. So I didn't really do much on production. And then the second record, Is It Selfish, was like the first time that I felt like I was really with collaborators who were like sort of like inviting me into the space. And so I learned a lot more there. And it was the first time that I was like sitting down and messing with drums. I think because I was so stubborn and I would be like, no, I really want them to sound like this. And then they'd just be like, okay, just sit down and like do it. And I was like, okay. And I was really grateful working on that record with Francis and the Lights specifically. I think is just number one of my favorite artists of all time. And number two was so sort of gracious, and I just feel like I learned so much from him in being able to watch him work and then sort of, you know, take some of that for myself, and also like have, like, he was just so good at listening to my ideas, and I felt really like respected and like he heard me, you know? And then, so yeah, Francis, I think, was like such a huge influence on then how I worked and after that. And then Simple, Sweet, and Smiling, the third album, that was the first time I recorded all my vocals and like had such a big part in arranging all those songs and not, I mean, I didn't arrange the last ones, but just in like sitting down at the computer and like doing all of those. It was just a lot more engineering on my part. And then this one, so much more production on my end where I'm like, I just have a really clear idea of what I want now. And I think like the best thing you can do as an artist, and I say this especially to female artists, is to learn how to produce, learn how to engineer, learn how to, you know, track your own vocals and put in all your own ideas, even if it's like, I want these drums and I'm going to find them from a splice loop, or and I'm going to, you know, put down like whatever shitty sounding version of what I want, just to at least put down ideas and then be like, we'll make this sound better later. Does wonders for, I think, just the vision of the product as a whole. So I think that's been like such a big part in learning, you know, like what an album should sound like. And yeah, so I think this record was the most, each record I've sort of like dug my toes in. Do you dig your toes in?
Yeah, you
can.
can dig your toes.
Is that what they say?
In the sand.
I think it's like dip your toes or dig your heels, maybe.
Dug my heels in?
No,
I like dig your toes.
I'm
Dig your toes
literally
is
like
fine.
the visual I get from that is so
I'm watching me break my toes in this vision.
like
but-
I'm seeing this motion in the sand.
Okay, that's
you know?
the difference between us.
Gross. And but I have done that with each, you know, record. So I think this one's the most like sitting down with everything, taking parts from different sessions and like really producing them. And I'm grateful to have like collaborators who are, you know, much better at making my ideas sound better and also just like, you know, expanding upon them and everything. And I think that that's like the gift of collaboration is you end up learning so much. And like, I think that working with other people who are incredible producers has made me a better producer. And yeah, so I'm grateful for that collaboration, for that like opportunity to learn, and also for just like the ability to work with people who are so great at like bringing, you know, some of my thoughts to life and like I said, expanding upon them and making them even better.
Yeah, expanding on them, but also giving you space
Yeah, I
to
think
do your thing.
And I think that's what makes a great collaborator and producer too, is like, if you're a producer that works with other, you know, with artists, it's like, I think the best thing you can do is like make their ideas better, you know, and not like, yeah, just, but I think that's a real skill to not like impose your own sort of
100%.
beliefs or ideas onto an album. Obviously, you bring some of them, but I think you have to sort of like strike a balance.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I love this. I love the journey too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have a couple of closing questions.
Hit me.
I would love to know if your music was a candle. What scent would it be?
That is so funny because I'm literally thinking of making a candle.
Oh, you should.
My God.
It smells like this album would smell like a tomato plant. Have you ever smelled a tomato plant?
I had a garden growing up,
Yeah.
so I love this so
the
much.
tomato plant, like the leaves and everything, it's just the most divine, fresh, just cleansing smell of all time. So I think that's what the record smells like.
Beautiful.
I love that you had that answer ready.
Yeah, those.
So many people are like,
so clear. Yeah.
I also want to know, what is your favorite sound right now that is not music? Oh no.
No, I was gonna say silence, but that's like
That's fine too.
But I think my favorite sound is just when I step outside and all I can hear are, some like birds and the rustle of the trees and just like that, the space. I think that's my favorite sound.
I love it.
Yay.
Yay. Okay, and last one, I would love to know who your ones to watch are. Who are you listening to that we should be listening to?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like all I listen to is country music.
That's fine.
So I feel like some of my favorite artists right now are like Carter Faith and Lauren Watkins and Haley Witters and Stephen Wilson Jr. That's basically all I listen to.
I didn't know any of those, so that's great for
you
me.
need to listen to Haley.
Yeah, that
So
one sounds
good.
familiar.
So good.
Okay.
So that's sort of, it's like, I either listen to that or like I said, like just whatever, like Christopher Cross or Sting or Seal. Like
Awesome. I love it. I love when I have like a homework assignment.
Yeah.
for the
Yeah, I
podcast.
love to give people homework.
Same.
Well, thank you so much for being here
Thank
once
you.
again. Yes, and thank you,
Yay.
Giselle. I love when we
Thank
get to
you.
do this.
Resident Kacy Hill stan.
Yes.
Hell
Everybody
yeah.
check out the album and check out Kacy Hill. All of her albums, actually.
All of the albums.
Yes.
And Bug, the album, comes out
Bug.
May 3rd.
Yay.
Love.
Okay, once again, this is Ones to Watch Chef's Choice. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.